So, good afternoon and welcome to another session on corporate governance from Naipunya Business School. Today, I will be discussing about corporate governance of University of Calicut, BUS 4C22. Myself, Dr. Jacob, Director, Naipunya Business School. In Module 4, Part 1, we will be discussing about corporate governance framework, a regulatory framework, then Board of Directors, Board Committees, Audit Committees, Remuneration Committee, Auditors and Corporate Governance, Bankers and Corporate Governance. Okay, so very interesting one. We need to understand what is the regulatory framework, corporate governance, as well as the board committees which control and regulate the framework of corporate governance. So if you look at the framework of corporate governance, you would find actually there are in the center you have the stakeholders, the promoters. These are the people who have promoted actually or started up this company. So we call them as stakeholders. They are have putting their stakes on this. And then we have two types of groups. Two groups of people are there. One on one side we have internal people, as well as the other side we have external regulatory also. So if you look at internal, we have shareholders are there, people who have purchased their shares of the company. Then we have board of directors who have been assigned the responsibility to run the institute, run the organization. And then we have the board of director. Under the board of directors, we have remuneration committee, nomination committee, risk committee, corporate governance committee, shareholders grievance committee, corporate compliance committee, ethics committee, and audit committee under them. So these are all the people who manage the corporate organization. And then we have actually external regulatory bodies also. There are certain laws, rules, or regulatory acts are there. We have the Companies Act of 2013 is the latest. Then we have SEBI, Securities Exchange Board of India, accounting standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and the secretarial standards issued by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India also. And between them, we have between these two groups, we have the auditors also. Now, the auditor is basically an independent firm who will be looking into the auditing part of as far as of the corporate, as well as giving a neutral view about the corporate. Then we have business ethics also, which has to be practiced by the corporate. And then the corporate social responsibility, which is right now an act as far as the government is concerned. That the government is also another stakeholder with various connections, right from employee law to corporate law and all those things. So government also comes in out with changes in policies, guidelines, and we have the role of media also. So if you look at the corporate governance framework, it is actually a very beautifully done framework with looking into the control side, as well as giving opportunities for shareholders, opportunity for the stakeholders to increase the profit and all those things. Overall, it presents a very good picture as far as the framework is concerned. Let us try to look at what all these people are. So once the company is formed and it is the promoters would request, actually they would select actually a board of directors consisting of both uh, executive members as well as non-executive or independent directors. And there are certain stipulations also. The stipulation has been spoken to you from the beginning itself, especially when the chairman of the board is a non-executive director or an independent director. At least one third of the board shall be independent directors. So 33% will be independent directors, provided the non-executive, provided the chairman is a non-executive director. Now, suppose if the chairman is an executive director or a promoter or somebody appointed by the promoters, and person who is a relative or connected with the company, then at least half of board shall comprise of independent directors, that is 50%. So this gives actually more of accountability and transparency as far as the board is concerned, to show that the board is actually it is not biased, or it is actually it is transparent or without any other issues. Okay, so there is no bias or any type of favoritism which will happen from the board side. Now, what are the responsibilities of the board? To define the purpose of the company. I mean, to work the company to in fulfilling its vision and mission. To define the values by which the company will perform in its daily duties. To identify the stakeholders relevant to the company. There are different types of stakeholders, right from the employee onwards to vendors and dealers and promoters and distributors and all those. To develop a strategy combining these factors to ensure implementation of the strategy which the board will be preparing. So the board, based on the vision and mission of the company, would prepare a strategy and make actually the CEO to implement this particular strategy. Now, if it is moving out of track, definitely the board would see to it that it is coming back to track. Now, if you look at the case of Tata Sons, similar thing which has happened, the board felt that Mr. Cyrus Mistry, the CEO of that point of time, did not comply according to the regulations of the board, and they removed him. Of course, I am not going into the reasons for removal and all those things, but it's an example where the board acted immediately. Now, structure of the board of directors, the maximum number of members a company can assign as directors is 15. However, the company can pass a special resolution in a general meeting to allow for assigning more than 15 members to the board of directors. Now, executive directors are full-time employees of the company and therefore have two relationship set of duties. They work for the company in a senior capacity, usually concerned with policy matters or functional areas of major strategic importance. Executive directors also may be promoters of the company. And non-executive directors are not employees of the company and they are not involved in day to day, but they would definitely would be coming and attending meetings of the board, and they will be balancing influence to help minimize conflicts of interest. For example, the directors, executive directors may are likely to have favoritism towards company, or they may look into RPTs or some sort of biases or RPT. Biases can be there. However, non-executive directors are the people who would balance it. They would not allow the company to go according to the way of the promoters. Neither, they would not actually totally deviate. So these people do actually a balancing act. That is the reason why we have, if a non-executive director is a chairman, then we have 33% of the directors are non-executive directors, and if the executive director is a chairman is basically a promoter or an executive director, then 50% will be non-executive director. So that actually puts an actual balance as far as the company is concerned. Now, the role of non-executive directors, they are very, very important. One, to contribute to the strategic plan of the company. According to the vision and mission, they prepare a strategic plan. So, to contribute to the strategic plan, to scrutinize the performance of the executive directors. If the executive director is showing some favoritism, that definitely can be controlled by these independent directors or non-executive directors. To provide an external perspective on risk management, okay, looking at what is the risk, and based on that, advise the company to move away from that. To deal with people issues such as future shape of the board and resolution of conflicts. Okay, a non-executive director should have high ethical standards, so that is expected from them, and act with integrity and probity, always looking into what are the issues, and they should support the executive team also and monitor its conduct. Two things: one, they have to support actually the executive team. However, they should also monitor its conduct, demonstrate a willingness to listen, question, debate, and challenge. They should raise questions. They should ask questions to the executive directors or maybe with the CEO team, and like get answers for that and get clarified also, because ultimately they are answerable. They are answerable actually to the government as well as to the other regulatory framework. So there is a lot of importance as far as non-executive directors or independent directors are concerned. Now we go to the different types of committees that we have. There are many committees. Let us look at those committees. All these committees are very, very important because they are the people who take decisions, and they look into the framework and regulatory framework of as well as compliance of the laws which are supposed to be practiced by the corporate. And we have these board committees specifically looking into certain. So now we have something called as audit committee, shareholders grievance committee, remuneration committee, Risk Committee, Nomination Committee, Corporate Governance Committee, Corporate Compliance Committee, and Ethics Committee. Let us look into the functions of all these committees. Now, Audit Committee shall assist the Board of Directors in the oversight of one, integrity of the financial statement. So, Audit Committee, we've already studied that there are three people will be there. They will be having knowledge in accounting as well as finance also. One person will be in accounting, another person will be in finance, and all the three of them likely to be independent directors, and that is what is required. And they will be looking into the integrity of the financial statements of the company. Then the public accounting firm's qualification and independence, performance of the company's internal audit function. Internal audit also happens, so that also they will be looking into the company's compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, which are actually recommended from time to time by the Indian Costworks Accountant as well as Indian Association of the Indian Chartered Accountants also. So based on that, they will be looking into. So mostly these people also will be like chartered accountants, and so they will be looking at what are the changes which are happening, and based on that they will be advising the company to look into all those things. Other than this, they will also be looking into the right to select actually the audit firm also, the right audit firm. They will be calling the board will be calling for quotations, and this particular what do you call this external auditor will be selected by this audit committee based on the available nominations that they have received. Powers of the audit committee has to investigate any activity within its terms of reference as far as auditing is concerned or finance and management is concerned, to seek information from any employee closely associated with whistleblower, to obtain outside legal or professional advice. Now, if it is required, they would look into outside or legal professional advice, especially when the corporation faces certain legal hurdles, to secure attendance of outsiders with the relevant expertise if it considers necessary. Now, if there is any clarification to be required, they may even seek seek actually people from outside also to find out what are the ways in which the company can do a better job as far as accounting and finance is concerned. Now, let us look at what are the other roles of the audit committee. So the other roles that audit committee performs would be the company's financial reporting process and the disclosure of its financial information, recommending the appointment and removal of external auditor, fixation of audit fee. Uh, that is external auditor. I am sure you understand that external, there's a firm. Okay, that firm can be removed, and fixing of the audit fee, reviewing the management the annual financial statements before submission to the board, significant adjustments arising out of audit, compliance with accounting standards, compliance with stock exchange and legal requirements, especially accounting standards may vary, change in the country. So the audit committee will be looking into all those things. Compliance with stock exchange. So there are other bodies also. So they have to look at whether the accounts which are being presented by the corporation are in compliance with accounting standards, stock exchange, and legal requirements. Discussion with internal auditors on any significant findings and follow-up. Discussion with external auditors before the audit commences about the nature and scope of audit, as well as post-audit discussion to ascertain any area of concern. I hope you understand that. After the external audit, they go for a discussion also. Reviewing the company's financial and risk management policies to look into the reasons for substantial defaults in payment to the depositors, debenture holders, and shareholders. So that actually gives the company's financial position. So they will be looking, audit committee will be looking into all these details, foolproof, so that they get a lot of information as far as the company to find out whether the financial balances of the company are at par or is there any risk available. So audit committee is very one of the very important committees as far as the organization, as far as the corporate is concerned, and they should be able to, because everyone is looking at this particular committee, ethics violation or any of these issues mostly happen with this audits. So that has to be carefully looked into. Now, there's an next committee we will be discussing is on shareholders grievance committee. This is also a very important one because there are different types of grievances, especially from the shareholders, uh, because of non-receipt of dividends or maybe non-receipt of shares, or non-receipt of transfers of shares, or maybe sometimes over debentures, or maybe case. There are various reasons, various reasons for grievances that can happen from the shareholder. So let us look into what all those things. Efficient transfer of shares, including review of cases for refusal of transfer, transmission of shares, and debentures. Now you applied for actually transfer of shares, and this is not actually being done. So naturally, you can give a complaint to the shareholders grievance committee, and they will look into that and do the needful. Redressal of shareholder and investor complaints like non-transfer of shares, non-receipt of balance sheet, non-receipt of declared dividends, etc. Issue of duplicate split consolidated share certificates. Allotment and listing of shares. You have applied for 1,000 shares, you got only 200 shares. So what happened with the 800? Where the money has been paid back. So those also will be looked into. Then review of cases of refusal of transfer, transmission of shares and debentures. Reference to statutory and regulatory authorities regarding investor grievances, especially to SEBI, and to otherwise to ensure proper and timely attendance and redressal of investor queries and grievances. Then the next committee we have is remuneration committee, especially when you studied Mervyn King's committee, it has been talking a lot about remuneration committee. So remuneration committee looks into actually the remuneration of the executive directors as well as the senior executives also. Senior executives are employees of the company, like the CEO, CFO, and MD, and all those people. So they will look into actual remuneration of all these people. Now, so this is a very important one because on one side, the organization needs to have the best of talent, and on the other side, the talent should be compensated according to the merit, not more than that or less than that. So that is something what the remuneration committee looks into. To recommend to the board the remuneration packages of the company's executive directors and non-executive directors and board members, including all elements of the remuneration package. What all elements it contains, like maybe the pay, then stock options, and all those things will be looked into by the remuneration committee for a company's executive directors, non-executive directors, board members, CEO, CFO, MDs, and all those people. To review the overall compensation policy, service agreement, and other employment conditions. And now, what is the policy, compensation policy, service agreement, other employment conditions, all those things. To make recommendations to the board of directors on increments in remuneration to the directors. I hope you understand that. To assist the board in developing and evaluating potential candidates for senior executive positions and to oversee the development of executive succession plans. So it is almost like your recruitment, where you look at what are the salary packages that you can offer and understand what are their succession plans also. So similar to that, you have remuneration committee on deciding what is the remuneration of the executive directors and the senior executives of the company. Now the next committee is called as risk committee. Now the risk committee's job is to look at what is the risk as far as the company is facing, maybe from the environment or maybe from inside. So look at what is the risk policy and plan using an appropriate enterprise. For example, risk inside can be some employee stir or employee strike, and outside could be from the industry, other industry, similar industry, or similar type of companies, or similar type of products. All these things will constitute actually this risk committee. So this committee will be looking into all those things, make recommendations to the board on risk indicators, a level of risk tolerance and appetite, monitor that risks are reviewed by the management, identify that risks are within the board approved. Once they identify, they will be looking at what the management does, the CEO and his team does. So that is another one of them. Perform an annual self-assessment of the effectiveness of the committee, reporting these findings to the board also as far as risk faced by the corporation in its endeavor to become a highly profitable and a growing company. Now we have the nomination committee. Now the nomination committee's job is basically to find out prospective directors and to appoint them into the board. Okay, so the nomination committee looks for, always will be searching or headhunting, I would say, for the best directors to be on the board, and also looks into the succession planning also, like the remuneration committee. Then we have corporate governance committee. We are studying corporate governance. So this corporate governance committee is the committee which looks into corporate governance, which has to be done as far as the company is concerned. What are the principles and policies, and what are the recommendations which is happening in India, and different different recommendations which are recommended by the SEBI or any other regulatory bodies on corporate governance, how that is implemented in the company, and look at what are the focus on, what are the focus given by the India government and regulatory bodies as far as corporate governance is concerned. So, corporate governance committee will be looking into all these things to see whether the company is steered properly by the directors as well as the executives also. Then we have corporate compliance committee. Now corporate compliance committee is the one which looks into policies and practice by the organization with applicable legal, regulatory and ethical requirements. Similarly, they will be looking into the code of conduct of other relevant standards, implement legal obligations from settlement agreements and other similar documents. Corporate compliance will be looking into various procedures by employees, vendors, and others. So, looking at what is the type of regulatory, for example, I can give you an example. For example, suppose if the government passes actually a new labor act. Okay, now the corporate compliance committee will be looking into that labor act and how it should be implemented in the company, in as far as this corporate is concerned. So similarly, the company, government passes an act on women directors has already been there, women directors in the board. So the corporate compliance committee will ensure that there is a woman there, and would recommend actually the nomination committee to search for a person and appoint them into the board. So these are the compliance. Compliance are basically the rules and regulations or laws or act as far as India is concerned, and the corporate compliance committee will be looking at whether the corporation is violating some of these laws. Now we have something called as ethics committee also. Ethics committee looks into ethics as far as the industry is concerned, as far as the company is concerned, as far as laborers are concerned. So they look into various ways in which how ethics are being, the ethical policy, they create actually an ethical policy. At the same time, they will also looking into those whether those ethics are being practiced or not, or if there is violated, if it is violated, who has violated, and conduct an investigation on that. So they will be looking into contributing to the definition of organizations ethics and compliance standards, assume responsibility for compliance according to those procedures, oversee the due care in delegating discretionary responsibility to see that these policies are being implemented, communicate the organization's ethics and compliance standards procedure to the board as well as to the executive team, monitor audit compliance, oversee enforcement including assurance that discipline is uniformly applied, take the steps necessary to ensure that the organization learns from its experience. Then we have something called as auditors and corporate governance. What is the role of auditors? Now these auditors is actually selected by the board. So there is a possibility that the auditor can become a little bit biased because they are collecting an audit fee also. Now, however, we would request actually, we want actually the auditors to be an independent body. So who would protect actually the interest of shareholders through fair and independent audit and submit reports on time. However, you would find that in many cases this audit violation has happened, especially in the case of Satyam, where audit violation has happened. There are many companies where can happen. However, if we have a very strong independent directors and a strong audit team, all these things can be prevented. So, however, auditors have got certain interests. They have to protect the interests of shareholders. They have to promote accountability, look into the policies, look at what is the audit violation which has happened, because internal audit also takes place. So, external auditors will be looking into whether there is any issue as far as internal audit is concerned. Risk assessment and mitigation planning, what is the type of risk and how it can be overcome. Crisis management, to see that that auditors look into the financial crisis there, they will be looking into that, see how it can be managed, and maintain a strong relationship with regulators also, because auditors most important one. So they will be working in tune with actually the audit committee also. At the same time, they would be independent also. As a result, they can actually come out with risk or maybe any ethic violation and all those things as far as corporate governance is concerned. Then we have bankers and corporate governance. Bankers, sometimes you would find that bankers occupy large chunks of share, and as a result, they would sit on corporate boards also. Now, the advantage is that bankers on boards can get actually the necessary capital for the firm to work. That is one side of it. And they can also be a guarantee to investors that the company is performing, because if the company doesn't perform, the bankers will also lose their money. So they will ensure that the company is performing, and as a result, the minority shareholders will also get benefit, and they can also give advice on from where they can get finance and all those things at a lower interest rate. However, sometimes what happens, bankers also develop very close ties with the corporate, and sometimes they will start extracting benefits for the firm also. They may try to enforce to take loans from their bank alone, as a result at a higher interest than what is offered from outside. So these type of things also can happen if bankers are there on boards. However, having bankers on corporate governance on boards is a very good one. However, it has to be carefully seen whether they are influencing, they're having any undue advantage as far as the corporation is concerned. So bankers and corporate governance is also like they have to ensure actually corporate governance. uh, so that is as far as bankers and corporate governance. I hope now you are familiar with some of the regulatory policies. I have explained almost everything as far as regulatory policies and what is the work to be done. However, any presentation has got limitations, so I would request all of you to kindly read books on corporate governance, either by Corporate Governance by Partha Sarthi, or maybe a very popular book right now available is by A.C. Fernando on corporate governance. So, if you can read these books, they will get more information on that. However, this is according to the syllabus, and I have prepared it, and I think it should be sufficient for you to learn corporate governance. So, if you have got any clarifications, you can always come back to me, clarify, get clarification either through contact me at Naipunya Business School, or you can actually contact me on my email at hod@mba.nimit.ac.in. Okay, so thank you for watching the video and learning. Have a great learning experience on corporate governance. Thank you very much.